When given an opportunity, you jump on it. Ventura County Farm Day 2023. I had a few days to decide, and I'm glad I made the choice.
Apricot Lane Farms. It's really meaningful that you guys want to be here. And I just want to preface this. This is about a 15 to 20 minute sort of informational tour, and this is very abbreviated from the regular tours that we do. But if you guys want to come back next year for our 2024 tour season, if you sign up for our email newsletter, we communicate all that information to you. That's where you purchase tickets. March through October, every Saturday we offer tours. Our farm stand is also open to the public, so you guys are welcome to come back anytime to get some more information. But just before we kind of really dive into it, quick show of hands, who has seen The Biggest Little Farm? Awesome. Any repeat offenders, maybe 5 or more times? A couple mega fans out there, awesome. And then follow up, who has seen The Biggest Little Farm, The Return, the Earth Day special? Okay, only a few people, awesome. Alright, so for anyone who hasn't seen the film, or maybe it's been a little while, John and Molly Chester started Apricot Lane Farms in 2011. John was a wildlife filmmaker, and Molly was a private chef focusing on traditional foods, and traditional foods being the method of farming and cooking that our ancestors would have utilized prior to the Industrial Revolution. So she really understood that the health and nutrition of the food she was cooking with was derived entirely from the farm and the soil it was grown in. So as she sort of struggled to source the caliber of food she was really looking for, and topped off with an unruly rescue dog, they embarked on this farming journey, and what started as a 10-acre dream very quickly turned into a 234-acre reality. So we look at Apricot Lane Farms as a farm integrated within a reawakened ecosystem, meaning as we brought the land back to life, we also opened up Pandora's box, and with it came a plethora of challenges. But our goal was and is to work in harmony with nature and not against it, or on the farm we like to say a comfortable level of disharmony. Our primary focuses are on regenerating the land, building up soil, bolstering biodiversity, all with the goal of building a healthy and resilient immune system for the farm. And the way we work to achieve that is through a concept called biomimicry, which means sort of recreating the systems that nature has already set in place for us and looking to nature to solve some of our problems. The 3 key players we utilize within that concept of biomimicry are animals, compost, and cover crop. And so what does that look like here at Apricot Lane Farms? Animals, compost, and cover crop. So we do have a composting operation here. We compost and we use our worms to create vermicompost. And so we have a 40-foot worm bin with 250,000 red wiggler worms. They're our hardest working herd on the farm. And they have a really strong microbe system within their gut. And so we are feeding them compost, and they're turning essentially dirt and turning it into a super highly nutrient dense, microbially rich vermicompost, and it is inoculated with all those good nutrients and micronutrients that we want to spread out to the entirety of our farm. So they're creating this vermicompost, and we are collecting that black gold, and we are able to spread it to every corner of our farm physically with just the compost, or we can turn it into compost tea. People may be familiar with compost tea, but it's exactly what it sounds like. We brew vermicompost in water for about 24 hours, and it multiplies the microbial life by 500%. And so we are able to take that then and put it directly into our irrigation system and spread that goodness all over the farm. And so that's been really important for us to build up the health and immunity of the farm. And we also do cover crop here on the farm. So we cover crop here in our garden in some of the beds. We're going into winter here pretty soon, so we're going to start cover cropping some of these beds over winter so that they have a lot of good micronutrients back in the spring when we're going to grow again. So we cover crop here in the garden, we cover crop in our orchards and in all of our pastures, and our cover crop is a mix of grasses, peas, legumes, vetch, clover, all things that sequester carbon and nitrogen into the soil. It adds organic matter into the soil. It helps with topsoil erosion prevention, but the number one thing that the cover crop does for us is it sequesters water. And so for every 1% increase of soil organic matter through the use of that compost, we're able to sequester 20,000 gallons of water on 1 acre of land. And so that is held in the top 6 to 8 inches of the soil. And so essentially we are creating a drought-tolerant soil system in which our soil holds on to water for far longer than soil without living roots. And whatever our plants don't soak up, our plants and our crops will then go down eventually and filter into our aquifer. We do have an aquifer that we share with all of the farms in this area, and we draw our water from there. So we are really actively trying to be good stewards of this land and regenerate some of our resources. Now I did also mention animals, so we are going to take a quick little walk and see some cows. So if you guys will follow me, we're going to head out this way. a good look at our cows. This is about half of our cow herd. We do have a satellite property down the road that has some more pasture, so the other half of our cow herd is housed there. But we have two types of cows here. So at the far back, the golden-haired beauty is a Highland cattle. And I don't know if you guys knew, but this isn't the Highlands of Scotland. And so unfortunately, these cows don't do too well in the weather of Southern California. And so we did start with the Highland cattle, but we have veered towards these redheads here. This is Akaushi. They're a Japanese Wagyu breed, and they do much better in our climate here in Southern California, and they equally have great temperaments. We love the Akaushi. But these are both heritage breed cows. Are people familiar with that term, heritage breed? Or maybe you've heard heirloom variety fruits and vegetables. Are people familiar with that? Yes and no. So it's like pre-industrialized genetics of a fruit or a vegetable or of an animal. And so these animals do really well in a mostly hands-on system. They're really hardy and they're really healthy and resilient in these types of environments where they're mostly left to their own devices. And this is a really great example here of a mutualistic relationship. So I mentioned biomimicry in the beginning. So the cows here are representing the buffalo who roamed the prairie land thousands of years ago. And following the buffalo would be predators, things that would eat them. And so they were packed into tight groups, tight herds because of the predators. And we are mimicking that here. So you can see those white poly wires, those are electric fences. And they are forcing these cows to stay in a tight, compacted area where they're grazing mostly evenly. And what we're looking for is called the rule of thirds. So we want the cows to eat a third, trample a third of the grass, and leave a third of the grass. And this is most optimal for the regrowth of the grass. So when the cow, chomps on the grass, it sends a signal down to the roots that says, hey, I've been injured and I need to regrow, I need to recuperate. And so it will slough off its roots, adding organic matter into the soil, and it'll send all of its energy up into the leaves of the grass, promoting regrowth. And so we will cycle our cows through these pastures.
Those are electric fences, and they are forcing these cows to stay in a tight, compacted area where they're grazing mostly evenly. And what we're looking for is called the rule of thirds. We want the cows to eat a third, trample a third of the grass, and leave a third of the grass. And this is most optimal for the regrowth of the grass. So when the cow, chomps on the grass, it sends a signal down to the roots that says, hey, I've been injured and I need to regrow.
When it comes out the other end, their manure is a highly microbially rich manure that we are able to use in our composting system, or we can leave it on our pastures and just add those good microbes and nutrients back into the soil. About 3 to 5 days after the cows are here in a pasture or any given pasture, we will cycle through our chickens. And the chickens act as a really great cleanup crew. They'll come through and they'll eat all of the bugs and grubs in the manure and in the grass. Saying hi. Are there any cow questions, you guys? Or any questions that you have about the farm? Yeah. So the Highlands, they do mix, but you can see she's sort of mostly staying in the shaded area. She likes on a warm day in full sun. That's not really great for the Highlands, so she prefers to stay in the full.
Let's give it up for Sarah. What? I'm always like, don't expect the same articulate conversation. So I want you to bring your expectations down a little bit. But I'm happy to answer any questions. We love seeing you all out here. Hopefully you'll get out for a full tour. If you haven't, the trick is sign up on for the newsletter. We don't really announce those on social media because they get overwhelmed, which is fantastic. It's a sign that regenerative agriculture is of great interest. But yeah, so we'll start those back up in the spring. We have one more next weekend. But yeah, hopefully they do the full tour and everything that Sarah said, probably times 20. Yeah. Happy to answer any questions you all might have. Yes, right here. the other farms? Yeah, I mean we're one version of a regenerative farm, and yes, I think there's a lot of other regenerative or even farms that are trying to practice more soil conscious methods that will reach out to us. But that's the way other farmers, we learn from them as well. So there is an increasing exchange of information between farms, especially as we venture back into these more traditional methods of soil health and the importance of biodiversity and the way that regulates all the issues that farmers face. So yeah, there is a growing community around regenerative ag, biodynamics, etc., through certification processes, or just because they're neighbors sharing in different war stories.
Is there any particular certification process that you're more impressed with right now versus the organic?
Well, yeah, the organic label is great. It's a start. It's like the Prius, it's not going to get us there. But the thing that we've been, we are biodynamically certified, so you can't be biodynamic unless you're organic first, and then you can achieve biodynamics after that. Or regenerative organic certification, called ROC, is another certifier. But most organic requirements do not require the level of integration of a system beyond just saying you can't spray certain things. They don't actually require soil health. They just say you can't spray synthetically derived insecticides and pesticides and use synthetically derived fertilizers. So it's a great question. And just because farmers aren't certified, they are finding these methods of soil health to be incredibly important and crucial, and create a resiliency on the farm that it didn't have. But yeah, organic, or I would say biodynamic through Demeter or ROC. Yeah. Yes. What age was I when I got the farm? 40. My first animal, a goat named Guppy. Yes, with floppy ears. And one son named Beavis, because he used to butt us. So we called him Beavis the Butthead. Longer story, then they ended up having children, so it's a complicated thing. Yeah. Emma the pig would be 12. She passed away last year. Surprisingly, which means there was no sign that she was sick. So she lived a delightful existence up until the last minute. In fact, I went in to see her the night before she passed away, not knowing anything was wrong. And she ran up a hill, and she weighed 750 pounds. And I had a hard time running up a hill just a second ago. So she lived a good life. Pigs generally, that would be a long life for a pig, 12 years. That's a pretty long life. So she came very close to that. But Edie, her great-granddaughter, is here, and she is a lot more personality than Emma, I will say that. Yeah.
That's the water supply.
The water supply. So, have we talked about water? Okay, so we're on an aquifer. That's what all the farms in this area require. Southern California and this region, 10 to 12 inches is what I heard. I didn't see that for the first 8 years. It was more like 4. So we're on a finite resource that is only regenerated through the processes of what we do and how we handle it above the ground. What are we doing to hold water, capture water? So for us, the water use has been not an issue, because first of all, we underuse our allocation by 10 to 35%, and we don't get additional allocations just because of our altruistic viewpoints. There's no box for that. We get our water allocated based on what we grow, and there's a crop allocation for those things. So we're growing cover crop and 20 plus acres of habitat restoration, all with a resource that we're still maintaining under that allocation. The cool thing is that once you have cover crop established, you stop losing water to runoff, you stop losing soil to runoff, you stop polluting the ocean with that excessive nutrient flow, and you are holding water to regenerate aquifers for future generations. And so this past year we had 36 inches. What do you think? How many gallons does that translate falling on 240 acres? Take a guess. Scream a number out. What's our organic matter? 5 to 7%, depending on where. 1 million gallons. 220 million gallons fell on this land and did not leave. And that's really important because people always say, how much water do you use? No one ever asks how much water we regenerated. You can't create a system of sustainability if your idea of sustainability is just not to spend and just to save money. You have to be adding systems that create a regenerative flywheel effect. And so if we're not contributing back to that system, we're never going to regenerate it because it's going to get used up. So it is a finite resource that all Californians are super aware of. And more farms are starting to understand the value and the resilience that's created through these types of farming methods that require the understanding of how to mimic the natural systems that exist within nature that survive and thrive.
Speaking of regenerative and kind of regenerating that resource, how did you come up with the farm school idea to kind of give back to the community that way and kind of look forward multiple generations?
Such a great question. How do we come up with the farm school idea? We have 11 students. It's a homeschool co-op, and so it's eight or so families. A couple of them have twins, and they contribute, and we have 2 teachers. And so, you know, really what we've learned is that the way to create the most everlasting effect that is the kind of the hope, the beacon of hope that we're all looking for, is to help them to see this stuff early on. Because think of the decisions that, you know, you and I made for 40 years before I understood this. I made decisions not based on something that I understood because I never saw it. I might have had the DNA or the imprinting to know that it may exist, but I didn't know how. They can't unsee this, and they will make 40 to 50 years of decisions that are far different than us, and that is the level of impact that it'll take to turn this thing the other direction. We just weren't aware of the consequences. We also weren't aware of what it looked like when it was healthy, right? And so we've really said that our mission is really about, you know, the content that we create with the films and the stories, the tours that Sarah and her team do, getting as much of an opportunity to get people in front of it and seeing it is the greatest impact. Because no matter how we vote, until you guys start buying food that is grown in this way, it doesn't matter, right? And so the politicians will follow that whim. So I always say, you know, 3rd graders and soccer moms will change the world. And I think that that's such an important thing to understand, because we feel very frustrated by politics and other things that aren't getting on board fast enough, but it always changes with the dollar. And you know, the kids we stopped our parents from not wearing a seatbelt. Then we tried to stop them from smoking and tell them they can't just crack the window that much and say that there's air coming in the window of the car. And then next generation started recycling, made their parents recycle, and this generation's making their parents compost. Stop throwing away the finite natural resources that we need to live on the planet. Why do we what?
She said, why did you get the farm?
Why did we get the farm? To get out of LA. For the dog. Yeah, we just, both Molly and I knew that we just knew we really wanted great eggs. Because once you have good eggs, it's just that simple. And then we found alignment with some people that were willing to invest in it because they saw that the future of this planet is really food and how it's grown. So it gave us, and Molly had a deep understanding about the way that traditional cultures maximize nutrient absorption in the preparation of the food, all the way down to how it was grown in the healthiest soil. That's where the minerals and nutrients come from. And chemical fertilizers don't add up in the same way.
Do you guys milk the cows? Or
We have one. You can milk them. They'll kick you. No, they're not for looking at. They are for building. Well, what are cows for on this farm? Manure. Gold, right? They're for building soil health. The relationship between healthy soil and ruminants is millions of years old. Dinosaurs, same thing. So you can imagine the size of a Tyrannosaurus Rex poop. You know, that is a lot of fertility that gets cycled through that process. So that's their principal main operation. And then as we have excess, we will sell them for meat. But our main goal is to continue to have animal imprint here. We have cows, we have sheep, we have chickens. You're not seeing the whole operation just in this little bit. in order to add to that fertility cycle, and then the excess is sold off for meat sales. We do have one dairy cow named Maggie. She's retired. She's a bit of a matriarch, a little bit of a diva. She's a brown Swiss dairy cow. Fantastic milk when she was willing to cooperate. Another question? Are we feeling pressure from big agriculture to buy their products or to do things a certain way? No, most of it is, unintentional, just public shaming and neighbors saying things that just make you question your hopes and dreams that are built on the frail idea of possibility. And I think for us that was the hardest part in the beginning, but we stayed open. We were never evangelizing this. I still won't. I mean, I don't think we should shame farmers that aren't doing it. I just think we should support the farmers that are, and give them an opportunity to experiment in this direction. But we did, over time, a lot of farms that were making fun of us have come around and asked us how we were doing these things and why do our trees look better? Why are we not spraying for things like thrip? And I've never dewormed an animal in 12 years. That's insane for people to think that we don't use chemical dewormer, and we do all of this through all these other systems. So we had to prove ourselves first, even to ourselves, before we would say a lot. And I will say that level of diplomacy is what it's going to take. I also say that I've learned that there's not one political side that's dominated the tours. It is both sides. They all care. And I'm always surprised, because I think we're led to believe that there's certain people that care certain ways, but I would say there's a unifying quality to this portal of nature that we all seek a connection to. And it is best found on a farm that is trying to, in some form, coexist with this system. Yeah, our worst problem was it coyotes or gophers. Oh boy, I mean they were all. I mean you hit it all. You're bringing back so much early 40s trauma. Well, I have a little sign in my office that says "Don't let the gopher get you down." And I mean it was all hard, and you never think that it's going to work out. The worst probably the gophers, because of the amount of damage that they did. But once we put barn owl boxes in over a few years, between barn owls, great horned owls, and coyotes being diverted away from eating the chickens they were eating by having the right guardian dogs in place, the barn owls alone ate 35,000 gophers in 1 year. And that's probably a conservative number. I was telling the last group, one bobcat can eat a 30-pound bobcat, 20 to 35-pound bobcat can eat up to 2,000 rodents a year. That animal is worth $15,000 to $20,000 to us, because it costs us about $115,000, $100,000 a year to catch 9,000 gophers with people. And nature just does it better. You just got to create the right environment for them and invest in the environment that they would live in to help mitigate those issues.
We saw a coyote today.
What was his name? Do you know the coyote's name? He didn't tell you. Yeah, they're all around.
Actually, we just pulled in and all those trees. It just like.
He was like, "Whoa, what are you doing here?"
And it was orange.
And he was orange. Oh my gosh. It's not like Wile E. Coyote. That's a famous
We
coyote.
thought it was a fox at first, but it was a coyote.
That's a coyote. So coyotes eat a lot of gophers. It's pretty cool. Have you ever seen that like Planet Earth film where you see the white fox do the nosedive? The coyotes do the same thing in a gopher hole. It's so cool to see.
Love that.
It's awesome. They're really cool. I mean, they're not really nice to your cats, but they do serve other roles.
Do you make a distinction between like industrial organics versus like the organics you kind of practice on this farm, or through, yeah?
Organic, the industrial organics, maybe. I don't really, it's a very broad question, but I understand what you're trying to ask. The industrial organics will likely not have provisions around the building of soil health as the principal gut microbiome of the planet, the immune system of the entire farm and the planet, and they won't have provisions or requirements around the increase of biodiversity. We used to, let me give you an example. We used to rent 80 to 100 honeybee hives every single year. And that's the norm for a farm this size. And then after about 5 years of having restored a tremendous number of habitats, and all these plantings behind you are all very deliberate. All these things are to keep the ground covered, but also to feed other insects. We cold turkey cut off our honeybee rental addiction. We had about 10, 12 hives here that were various levels of success of honeybee hives. And we had no pollination loss. Does anyone know why? We had our own bees, which were what kind of bees, I mean, generally speaking? Bumblebees, native bees. The honeybee is not native to North America. It's great for honey, and it's great for guaranteed pollination, but the native pollinator population on this farm has exploded over the years. You'll see a big fat one like that, the carpenter bee flying around there. They like to drill in your house and lay their babies, but they also are one of the only native bees that can actually properly pollinate tomatoes, because they are able to vibrate at the right level. It's essentially the key of C to open up the pollination gates. You can also do it with a vibrating toothbrush. But a honeybee is not strong enough to open the pollinators. So that's happening with larger bumblebees like the carpenter bee, which is largest in North America. When we saw that return, they're also 3 to 100 times more efficient. You have a wonderful butterfly in your head, don't move. You're like a nature goddess right now. 3 to 100 times more efficient at pollinating than honeybees. And so these are really important things to understand, and then you invest your money in the ecosystem services that are provided through that. It just doesn't happen as quick as when you spray Roundup, right? It takes a little longer, but there's more resilience. Anything that's fast is not as resilient. Hey, we built this 100-story building really fast. You want to live on the top floor? Probably not a good place to hang out, you know? Things that take more time have more resilience, right? Biggest lesson, people are like, can you make it more efficient at the cost of resilience? No, we're not going to do that. If it's resilient, we'll be here longer. No, they're a mix of native and non-natives. My personal belief, and the farm has adopted a lot of this thinking, is that we will do our best to utilize native plants that do obviously well here, but with the climate that's been changing forever, and even more so in the last few years, there are a lot of other varieties that do really well. Okay, so mustard, for example, which populates most of the landscape on the side of the road, that yellow stuff, this is non-native. This was brought over by early settlers, and they would throw this out the back side of their wagons to be able to find their way home. And then one day they came back and they couldn't find their way home because it was everywhere. But it does have, even though it's a problem for some, it does have a tremendous benefit in that it helps break up really bad soil, which we have a lot of in Southern California, and has a deep, usually a very, very deep taproot. And animals do eat it if they're forced to, like in situations like that, because they have to eat everything that we tell them to eat because they competitively eat. But so we pay attention to native, but only to the degree that it's beneficial to the environment here. The California pepper is not from California. I mean, it's actually a Brazilian pepper, but it grows in 6 inches of water, so it's thrived. It needs nothing, right? Maybe, yes? What do we feed the animals? What do you think the cows and the sheep eat? Grass. Good answer. That's what they eat. They're herbivores. We feed cows grain we don't, but some farms do. And the grain is just the seed portion. It's the sugary, most sugar-dense portion. It doesn't have the complexity of all the other healthy components that grass is going to have. But it makes them grow faster. But for us, the healthier animal is going to be eating grass, like, you know, the way that we're eating salads. And so for us, that's really important. The chickens are fed a ration of GMO-free, organic, certified corn ration, or actually not corn, soy-free ration. And then they get probably 50% of their diet from the bugs and the worms. And that's why the eggs are so good. Who's had the eggs? And this isn't an advertisement because we don't have enough. But you know, the answers to life come after that egg, right? You just eat that egg and you're like, okay, I'll never stay at a Holiday Days Inn again and eat that free egg. What's that? It's an orange almost. Now industrial farms have learned how to fake the color of the yolk. So what you have to look at is the 2 layers of the white. There should be 2 layers, not 1. First layer will kind of spread, and the second layer will kind of be a gel that'll not spread as far. And that is an indication of essentially that there is a lot more going on nutrient-wise in that egg than one that's just like splattens out. But they have figured out how to fake egg color of the yolk. But look for those bright orange yolks. The taste is everything. Yeah, one more and we gotta go. This is, I love seeing this. How about we go with her and then I'll answer yours on the way down. Go ahead.
Kind of stupid, but what's the brand of the boots you guys wear?
The brand of the boots. Sarah is wearing Blundstones today. I believe they're an Australian company. But yeah, they're great because they slip on, slip off, and they're usually quarter top. That's really, yeah, I'm sure Blundstone will be really happy to ask that question. Yeah. All right, last one.
What's your favorite animal to climb? And I found one of your worms.
Oh, you found my worm. All right, don't take him. I like that. My favorite animal is, it's really hard to say, but I'm a big fan of the barn owls. I'm a huge fan of the bobcat, and I like cows and sheep equally because they can hear me. And obviously, my real favorite is Itty the pig. It used to be Emma, but now it's Itty. She's amazing. Yeah. But thanks for coming out, guys. Really appreciate you being out here. I'm going to turn it back over to Sarah.
Thank you, John. All right, this concludes our tour today. So we're gonna head back to the garden. We're gonna make our way back the way we came.
And Richard Perkins would be another one.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Look those guys up.
All right. Thank you.
Absolutely. Good luck with it.
All right.
You're gonna do it.
I think so.
You're gonna do it. It's Nicole Masters. The soil will save us. Or for the lava soil.
Okay.
I think it's for the lava soil.
I'll
But,
definitely check
yeah.
those out.
Yeah. And The Soil Will Save Us is another good book to get an overview of the whole regenerative movement.
How about in regards to like composting?
All of those things are taught by most of those guys, but mainly Nicole Masters for composting.
Oh, nice. Okay.
But there's just go on YouTube. You'll start to find people that really know. It's like
Absolutely. Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Sure, absolutely. Good luck.
If you want to check out this farm and any other farms later this year, check out the link below. It's going to be November 2nd, 2024 in Ventura County, California.